Well, it's quite early in the morning here. We're sitting in Santa Cruz in the Solomon Islands, and we're going over our charts and just getting our aircraft warmed up here for an early morning patrol around the islands. Just got to get everything ready, and we'll be getting the command to scramble shortly, I'm sure. Now we're just waiting on the line. We scrambled about 10 minutes ago, and it's a beautiful sunrise here. Again, we're in the F6F 5 Grumman Hellcat. Now, we took off from an airstrip here in Santa Cruz, and actually the Battle of Santa Cruz was won mostly with carrier-based Wildcats. The battle for the island of Santa Cruz was in 1942. The Grumman Hellcat, the F6F, did not actually start showing up in the arena of the Pacific battles until 1943. It was January of 1943 when VF9 embarked aboard the USS Essex received the first deliveries of the Hellcat. Now at this time, the F4U Corsair, the boat Corsair, had been flying for about 3 years at this point, but it wasn't carrier based. It still had not been rated for the carrier. And once the F6F was in the battle arena, the manufacturer of the Corsair, Vought, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, they were inspired to start making some major changes to their Corsair so that it could be carrier-based. The Hellcat was received very positively, and even though it's got a very poor forward view and it's got a tendency to weathercock on the ground, unless that tail wheel is locked, really there's no problems. There's just no issues with operating this from carriers, even light aircraft carriers. So the first combat mission by VF5 was flown with the second attack on Marcus Island on the 31st of August. They were operating from the USS Yorktown. And in the first big air battle in the Quajang Row area on 4 December 1943, 91 Hellcats met 50 A6M0s and destroyed 28 of them and only lost 2. The Grumman Hellcat is not the fastest fighter of the World War II warbirds, definitely not the most agile and not the most heavily armed. But in the war against Japan, the F6F was by far the most important single aircraft because it really turned the tables on what had previously been an unbroken run of a whole lot of easy successes for the Japanese, and the F6F struck fear into the heart of every Japanese pilot. Of the total of about 6,500 confirmed victories by U.S. Navy carrier-based pilots, the F6F, which only entered the war in August of '43, gained 4,900, so 5,000 of about 6,500 were victories of F6F pilots. Most of the other victories were with the F4F Wildcat. The Hellcat was known as the Zero Killer. So the F6F had an impact in every theater, and it was at one point the Bethpage factory, the assembly line they were roughly turning out 20 per day. So 20 aircraft per day from one factory, and they were only made in one factory, and there were about 12,300 of them. All substantially identical, made in 2.5 years. Almost all the major air combats of the Pacific Theater from August 1943 onwards were dominated by the F6F Hellcat. It was flown by the U.S. Navy aces from that period. From February 1945, it was flown by 4 U.S. Marine carrier squadrons, and its superiority over the Japanese had by late 1944 become so absolute it maintained a continuous presence by day and night over the combat zone and Japanese airfields in what was called the Big Blue Blanket. On the basis of contemporary unit records, the ratio of F6F kills to losses exceeded 19-1. And they had different variants. They had the F6F-5N, which was a night fighter, and the -5P, which was a photo aircraft. All of them had armament. Hellcat proved to be the most significant fighter with the U.S. Navy during World War II. Grumman had produced the F4F Wildcat, the first monoplane fighter for the Navy. The sudden need for an even better naval fighter after Pearl Harbor was met by the larger and more powerful F6F Hellcat. It was designed and developed with great speed, mass-produced at a rate never equaled by any other single aircraft factory. Following its first flight on 26 June 1942, a total of 12,272 were built, 11,000 of them being produced in a 2-year period. Their arrival with the Pacific Fleet played a major part in combating the Japanese advance. It's quite an aircraft, and this particular one is the Hellcat from Flying Iron. simulations. Really fantastic aircraft. They also do a Spitfire, which I got after I purchased this aircraft, and it was really nice. So I'm just enjoying patrolling around, making sure that nothing approaching the islands in the water and nothing approaching in the air. I did see some aircraft way up above. I must be in a flight path, a particular traffic pattern, because there must have been 3 or 4, and they were all more or less going exactly the same direction. And so lights on, I gotta cool it off. See the red light, that means I gotta open up my oil shutter here. Gotta pay attention to that. And then it's hard to see the silver going off. So oil shutter and cowl, engine cowls are opened up, and I lowered the RPM, so it's cooled off. Definitely gotta watch that. I haven't mastered the temperatures in the Corsair yet, the Goodyear Corsair, which is really a fantastic plane. I was able to find the pilot's flight operating manual for several of these aircraft. This one, the Supermarine Spitfire, and the Corsair, in particular the Corsair made by Goodyear, which is the one that we have available to us in the sim. And I found these are actually reproductions of the original. So I'm going to study that Corsair manual, because I've had a couple of okay flights with it, but as soon as I try and go very far or try and do any kind of maneuvers, I end up killing the engine, blowing oil all over the canopy, and having to have a forced landing. The squadron's going to get pretty upset if I keep coming home without my airplanes. A little bit windy around here, but not bad. This plane really is a sweet plane. Very nice to fly. Gotta get my trim control set better though. You got three trims. You got your leather and aileron. A lot of light aircraft, you use your elevator rut trim, but you very seldom use the others. But these guys, they got so much force from those engines. For instance, I think I was reading in the, I think it was in the Corsair manual, the pilot's operating manual, that when you're taking off, part of the takeoff checklist is to set your rudder trim to full right rudder. So for takeoff, I guess you know, instead of fighting it with your rudder pedals, you use your rudder trim. Now, of course, I wouldn't be patrolling by myself. I'd have at least my wingman, and at least for a local patrol like this on the island. I think if we were to go further north to some of the others, then you'd have at least 4, 2 each with a wingman, and fly in the, what they call it, the finger 4 configuration. I'm gonna patrol probably about 15 minutes in, probably about another 15 minutes, and that should get us back around to the airstrip. And I can definitely see why, you know, patrolling around like this, and just imagining what it was like with not knowing if there were going to be Japanese Zeros flying around or Japanese fleet, you know, when you go up So then you see a Japanese fleet off the shore. You know, it's always nice, I'm sure, to get back to that landing strip and know that you're back home. So, and I do have sunglasses on, so if it looks darker than what you normally see when you fly, I use the OpenXR toolkit to have sunglasses, and since it's morning, I only have the light glasses on. Midday or noontime when it's the brightest, I put on darker goggles. But this, I think, is looks pretty good. I think the glare is not too bad here. You can see around me quite well to clear the sky and pick up the enemy fleets off the coast of the island. I do love these aircraft. World War II aircraft, I think, are just, I mean, modern jets are neat. They're awesome. I love cruising around in some of those super fast jets, but I think just for pure beauty, these guys, they're hard to beat. They were really the first monoplanes. You know, even the one prior to the F6F, the F4F, the Wildcat, was actually originally a biplane, and it was changed to a monoplane, and then this was the first real monoplane that Robin did. So, beautiful, huh? One more time back up, and then we should be at the airstrip to land. So the airstrip that we took off from and that we'll be returning to is Alpha Golf Lima. It's AGGL, Santa Cruz, Solomon Islands. And again, this aircraft wasn't here during the Battle of Solomon Islands. It came in about a year after. Well, not after the battle, but the Battle of Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz, by the time the Hellcat entered into the Pacific Arena, the Battle of Santa Cruz was done. The island was under control of the Allies. We were slowly moving our way north across the Solomon Islands. More or less all fought with aircraft from the aircraft carriers, the Hornet, the Enterprise, some of the aircraft carrier involved, and the Wildcats being the aircraft that was launched from most of those in the strike forces. Alright, well, we got the strip directly ahead of us here. So we'll be landing here shortly. Yeah, definitely after half an hour of flying and patrolling, it is very nice to see the runway down below. So let's we're gonna get ready, get our landing configuration, get our gear ready to deploy, get our flap set and our engine cowl opened up. Landing configuration and turn around and land. Hey, thanks for watching. See you in the skies.